What's up guys, Noah from Stage 3 Motorsports, and today we're going to be doing a McGaughys 6-inch lift kit for our 2011 F350. This kit has shocks and everything included, all the hardware and all that stuff, so we've got everything laid out. We got our truck up on the lift, we're going to get it up in the air and jump straight in. With our truck up in the air, we first need to remove our wheels to gain access to the front suspension. Now go ahead and remove the brake line bracket from the frame to get some slack. And also remove the plastic ABS clips on the radius arm. From there, move down to the bottom of the spring and remove the second brake line bracket. Next, remove the top nut from the front shock, followed by the lower nut and bolt to remove the entire shock from the truck. Then remove the nuts from your sway bar ends, followed by the two bolts holding the bushings on each side. From there, you can completely remove the front sway bar. Now here we had to remove some sway bar drop brackets from a prior kit to make way for the new drop brackets that'll need to bolt to the frame. After attaching the brackets, we removed the steering shock bolt to help swing it out of the way. With the shock clear, we quickly installed the new steering stabilizer drop bracket. Next, we removed our bump stop to make space to loosen up the bolt on the track bar. With it loose, we're able to lower the front axle slightly to release tension on the front springs, which then allows us to remove them entirely. After the springs are out, go ahead and remove the plastic clip near the oil pan for some additional slack, and then remove the track bar bolt and drop the bar out of the bracket. Now remove the cap and cotter pin from the nut securing the drag link to the pitman arm. Then remove the nut itself and tap the arm with a mallet to break it free. Once free, you can lower the drag link out of the way. From there, we can remove the track bar bracket from the truck's frame. Next, remove the 46mm nut securing the pitman arm and then use a puller tool to remove the arm itself. We can now install the new drop pitman arm with the factory nut. Position the new track bar drop bracket onto the truck's frame and bolt it into place. Once finished with the track bar bracket, we can install the drop bracket for the brake line and attach the factory bracket to it. Next, we remove the bump stop mounts from our previous lift and replace them with the larger mounts for the 6-inch kit. We then installed the factory bump stops onto the new mounts. Moving back to the steering, use a mallet to help set the track bar in the drop bracket, then reattach the hardware and tighten it down. Now set the new hardware in the sway bar drop brackets and move the front sway bar into place. Then loosely attach nuts to the two front mounts and the sway bar ends. Moving back to the radius arm, remove the hardware securing the back of the arm to the frame and allow it to drop down. Then remove the hardware securing it to the axle and remove the arm completely. Take the new upper boxed arm and 4-link drop bracket and position them on the underside of the frame. Start by mounting the 4-link bracket with the provided hardware and then connect the front of the boxed arm to the axle. Be sure to leave all the hardware loose while you position each piece. After the upper arm is in place, mount the lower boxed arm using the provided hardware and alignment cam bolt. Go back through and tighten all the hardware for both arms and the 4-link bracket. With the 4-link bracket lined up, drill a hole through the frame and bolt it in using the provided 1/2 inch by 1 1/4 inch bolt. Now move to the front of the truck and insert the new McGaughys lift springs. Then use your jack to lift the front axle up slightly to hold the springs in place. Press the bushings into your new front shocks, then position it on the truck and loosely thread the hardware for the top and bottom of the shock. It's a good idea to clean the threads from their powder coat to make bolting them easier. Slowly lift the jack to set the front end in place and then tighten the top and bottom mounts for the shock. Next, tighten down the bolts attaching the sway bar bushings to the drop brackets on the truck. From there, you can also tighten down the sway bar ends. Reattach the drag link to the new drop pitman arm and make sure to put a new cotter pin in with the castle nut. Now mount the stock steering stabilizer to the shock drop bracket and tighten it to the factory specs. With all the main components in place, we can now go back through and reattach the lower brake line bracket, the diff breather hose, and the wiring for ABS. Some of the factory clips may be broken or unusable, so zip ties will be handy here. After all the hoses and wiring are back in place, double check that all your components are installed properly, and that'll complete the install on the front portion of this lift. Now let's move around to the back of the truck. Start by removing your rear wheels and supporting the rear end with a jack. Remove the emergency brake cables from the stock clips on the frame. Note that our truck has extra air lines for its air spring kit. Now remove the hardware from the upper and lower shock mounts to remove the rear shock. After pulling the shock, we remove some hardware from the aftermarket airbag system on our F350, which we won't be using with this lift kit. We then used our jack to lift the rear end slightly and disconnected the vent tube. Then we removed the fitting to allow for installation of the extension bracket. We then threaded the vent tube fitting back into the rear end with the provided brake line extender bracket. Next, we loosened up the nuts for the U-bolts and gently lowered the rear end before completely removing them from the truck. After removing the factory U-bolts, apply 2 C-clamps to the leaf pack to keep it compressed. Then clamp a vise grip to the bottom of the leaf spring center bolt. Now remove the emergency brake clip and factory center bolt from the spring pack, followed by the factory U-bolt retainer plate. Once removed, we can install the new leaf spring center bolt and provided U-bolt retainer plate on top of the spring. With everything tightened up, you can now remove the C-clamps and the vise grip from the spring pack. Take the new tapered lift blocks and position them on the truck with the taller side facing outwards towards the rear of the vehicle. Drop the new U-bolts in over the top and begin attaching the lower U-bolt plates and nuts from the bottom. Be sure to tighten the nuts to factory specs. Moving back over to the brake line bracket, we can attach it to the extender using the provided hardware. Now install the new rear shocks with the body of the shock towards the bottom mount and the shaft pointing up towards the frame. To wrap up the install, reattach the emergency brake cables and brackets to the truck and trim the U-bolts down to provide a little additional clearance underneath the truck. After double checking your work, make sure to have your vehicle professionally aligned to ensure that the truck drives straight and doesn't wear your tires unevenly. That's going to be a wrap on this install, and as always, thank you for watching.